What if the man who knocked on your door was the only one who could save you, but accepting his help meant giving him everything? The wind cut across the empty plains of Wyoming like a knife, cold and merciless. Sarah Walker sat beside a broken wagon, her hands shaking as she pulled her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders. 3 days earlier, she had been a hopeful wife traveling west with her husband James to start a new life. Now James lay under a small pile of stones, the only grave she could manage with her weak hands. It was not the resting place he deserved, it was all she had strength to give. The land around her was silent and endless. Dry grass stretched as far as her eyes could see. The sky above was a pale, washed-out blue that almost looked empty of life. She had never known a silence so loud. It pressed on her chest and made her feel smaller than a grain of dust. James had believed this land would give them a future. He spoke of a farm, children, and a house full of laughter. She had believed him. Now his dreams lay buried beneath a pile of rocks. The 2 hired men who were supposed to travel with them had not stayed long after James died. Jeb and Cole took the food, the 2 strong horses, most of the water, and left Sarah with nothing but the lame horse, a broken wagon, and fear. Jeb had tipped his hat with a fake smile before leaving. "The Lord will look after you, ma'am," he said. It was crueler than leaving without a word. On the first night alone, the cold had nearly taken her. She curled under the thin blankets, shaking so hard she thought her bones might break. On the second day, she finished the last of the water. On the third, her throat burned with thirst so badly she could hardly swallow. The lame mare, Daisy, stood nearby with her head low, breathing weakly. Sarah wished she could help her, but she could not even help herself. When she saw movement far on the horizon, she thought her mind was playing tricks. Heat often made the air dance, turning shadows into shapes that did not exist. But this shape grew larger, a rider on a horse and a second animal behind. Someone was coming. Her heart pounded in fear. Out here, strangers meant danger. Many stories told of outlaws, men with no law, no mercy. She pushed herself up and grabbed a sharp rock, the only weapon she had. She held it tight, ready to fight, even though she was too weak to stand. The rider did not rush toward her. He circled slowly, watching, studying the wagon, the grave, the horse, and her. He finally stopped a short distance away. He was a large man with broad shoulders and a long coat of buckskin. A dark beard covered his jaw. He looked as if he belonged to the land itself. The silence grew heavy between them. He watched her for a moment, then got off his horse. He did not come close. He set down a metal canteen in the dirt and stepped back. Water. She stared at it, as if it were a trap or a miracle. Her throat ached. Her body needed it almost more than it needed air. Sarah crawled toward it slowly, never taking her eyes off him. When she reached it, she lifted the canteen with shaking hands. One small sip was enough to bring tears to her eyes. It felt like life returning. She drank a little more and looked at him. He said nothing. He only nodded once. He brought her food too, a small piece of dried meat and a hard biscuit. He placed them down and stepped back again. He acted like a man who did not waste words. Everything he did had a purpose. He walked to Daisy and checked her injured leg. He knelt beside the horse, his large hands gentle as he looked at the wound. When he stood, he gave a small shake of his head. Sarah understood. There was no saving the mare. He then began to take apart the broken wagon. He worked in silence, moving with skill and strength. He took the wood and canvas and built something new. A simple sled that his pack mule could pull. He was preparing to take her with him. Sarah feared him, but feared dying alone more. When he finished, he returned to the mare and placed his hand on her neck. He whispered a quiet word she did not hear, then drew his gun. Sarah turned away as the shot echoed across the open land. Her heart broke again, but she knew he had shown mercy. He walked to her and finally spoke. "We leave now." Quote. His voice was deep and rough, as if unused to speaking. He helped her stand, steadying her when she swayed. His touch was strong and warm, but brief. He did not look at her longer than needed. He hitched the new sled to the mule, mounted his horse, and started forward. "You walk," he said simply. Sarah looked at the grave, at the broken wood, at the stained earth. She had no home left here. She took a breath and followed him. That night, he built a fire. They ate in silence. The flames lit his face, showing worn lines that suggested he had lived a hard life. He watched the dark land as if danger lived in every shadow. She did not ask where he was taking her. She did not ask his name. She did not dare. But as she drifted into sleep near the fire, one thought stayed in her mind. Maybe this man was not the end of her story, but the beginning of something she never expected. Sarah woke before sunrise with a shiver running through her body. The air was cold, and her thin blanket did little to keep it away. The man was already awake, sitting near the low fire with his rifle across his knees. He had not slept much, if at all. His pale gray eyes watched the land as if danger could appear at any moment. They began walking again as the first light touched the plains. Sarah's legs were weak, and every step felt like walking on needles. The man stayed several steps ahead, never slowing, never speaking, yet she knew he was aware of every time she stumbled. She watched the way he moved. He walked like someone who belonged to the wild. He scanned the land with quiet alertness, reading the wind, the ground, the clouds, as if they were speaking to him. By midday, the sun grew painfully hot. Her lips were cracked, and her boots rubbed her feet raw. When she finally fell to her knees, the man stopped. He came back to her, lifted her gently by the arm, and guided her to a small patch of shade beside a rock. He handed her a little water, only a little, enough to continue. There was no softness in his face, yet his actions were not cruel. Everything he did kept her alive. When night came again, he built another small fire. Sarah sat near it and watched him clean his knife with steady hands. She wanted to speak, but did not know what to say. Silence felt safer. That night, her fever came. Her body shook, and her teeth chattered, even though she was close to the fire. The man noticed. He came to her side and placed the back of his hand on her forehead. His touch was rough, calloused, but gentle. "Fever," he said. He boiled water, added dried herbs from a tin, and handed her the cup. The taste was bitter, but warmth spread through her body. He covered her with another blanket and sat awake, his back against his saddle, keeping watch through the night. When she woke after dawn, the fever had eased. The man was still at his post, his rifle in his hands, eyes open. He had protected her through the night without a word or complaint. The days passed, and the land changed. The flat plains began to rise into hills, and soon the mountains came into view. The air became cooler, and the nights colder. Sarah walked closer behind him now, not out of fear, but trust. One evening he stopped and handed her a small knife. "You need to learn," he said. He showed her how to hold it, where to strike if someone ever tried to hurt her. His voice was steady, not frightening. He was teaching her to survive. Sarah practiced the moves with slow, uncertain hands. When she looked up, he was watching her closely. There was no judgment in his eyes, only approval when she improved. As nights passed, the silence between them changed. It was no longer a wall. It was something they shared, a quiet understanding. One night, she gathered the courage to speak. "You saved me," she said softly. He did not look up from the fire. "I only did what had to be done." She wanted to ask his name, but somehow it felt too soon, too fragile. Instead, she whispered, "Why did you stop for me?" He was silent for a long moment. The fire crackled. Finally, he answered, "I know what it feels like to be left behind." Those words held pain that ran deep. She understood then that he carried scars too, though his were inside. After nearly 2 weeks of traveling, they reached the foothills of the mountains. The man stopped beside a small stream and washed his hands. Sarah drank the cold water and felt new strength flow into her. He stood and looked at her. "We reach the trading post soon," he said. "Supplies. Food. Then we move into the mountains." Sarah nodded. She was no longer the helpless woman he had found beside a broken wagon. She had learned to walk with her head higher, her steps steadier. As they climbed higher, clouds gathered. A storm hit fast. Rain poured, and thunder cracked across the sky. They found shelter in a shallow cave, just as rain flooded the land outside. The cave forced them close. Their shoulders almost touched as they sat near the fire he built. Sarah noticed a dark stain on his shirt. Blood. She leaned forward. "You're hurt," she said. "It's nothing," he replied. But she saw the pain in his jaw when he moved. Without asking, she took out the sewing kit she had saved from the wagon. She cleaned the cut on his shoulder carefully. He sat still while she stitched the wound closed, her hands steady. The moment felt different, close, personal. She saw his scars, old and new. This man had lived through storms long before he found her. "Thank you," he said when she finished. It was the first time he had ever said those words to her. The storm lasted through the night. But inside the cave, something changed. A bond formed, quiet but strong. When morning came and the world outside was washed clean, he stepped out, scanned the ground, and stiffened. Fresh tracks. Horses. More than one. She came beside him, and he pointed toward the west. "They passed close last night," he said, headed to Whisper Creek. Her heart jumped. Whisper Creek. The last place her husband had spoken of. The same place Jeb and Cole planned to go. Her hands tightened. Fear rose. But it was not like before. It burned hotter, sharper. Not fear of them, but fear of letting what they did go unanswered. He turned to her. "We need supplies," he said. "We go through. Stay close." She nodded, but her voice was firm. "I'm not running from them." Quote, the man looked at her for a long moment. His gray eyes searched hers. What he saw there made him give a small nod of respect. Something was coming, something that would change everything. And Sarah was no longer a woman who would hide. Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know. The mountains rose tall around them as they made their way toward Whisper Creek. The air grew colder, thinner, and every sound echoed through the trees. Sarah rode one of the recovered horses now, her back straight, her hand never far from the knife at her belt. The man rode beside her, silent as always, scanning the land. When they reached the ridge overlooking Whisper Creek, Sarah's breath caught. It was not the town she once imagined. It was only a single long log building with a small barn and a few horses tied outside. Smoke rose from the chimney. It looked ordinary, but Sarah felt a tightening in her chest. Somewhere inside were the men who left her to die. The man turned to her. "Once we go down, there's no turning back," he said. "You can stay here if you want. I'll get the supplies and return before sunrise." A few weeks ago, she would have begged him to keep her far away, but the woman she was then did not exist anymore. "No," she said. "I'm going with you. They need to see I survived." He studied her, then nodded once. "Stay close." They rode down together and tied the horses to the post. Laughter came from inside. Sarah recognized the sound. Cole's laugh. Loud, careless, mocking. Her heart began to pound. The man opened the door and stepped inside. Sarah followed half a step behind. The trading post fell silent the moment they entered. Jeb and Cole sat at a table, drinks in hand. Cole's smile faded when he saw Sarah. Jeb's face twisted in disbelief. "Well, I'll be," Jeb said. "Thought the coyotes ate you by now." Cole's eyes went to the man beside her. "You got yourself a new guard dog, lady?" he said with a slur. The man lowered his voice, calm and steady. "You will return the horses and the supplies. Then you will walk away." Quote. Jeb laughed, a cruel, ugly sound. "Walk? You planning to take our horses now?" Sarah stepped forward before she could stop herself. "They were never yours," she said. Her voice did not shake. Jeb's smile faded. He stood slowly, resting his hand on his gun. "We paid your husband for passage. You were part of the deal." Those words broke something inside Sarah. All the pain, the fear, the cold nights crying alone, all of it lit a fire inside her that would not burn out. "You left me to die," she said. "It ends today." Everything happened fast. Jeb went for his gun. The man fired first. The bullet hit Jeb in the leg, knocking him down hard. Cole rushed at Sarah. She did not freeze. She moved the way she had been taught. She stepped aside and drove the knife into his arm. He fell back with a cry. In seconds, the fight was over. Both men were on the floor, wounded and afraid. The man stood with his rifle ready. Sarah held the knife firmly, her breath quick but steady. The bartender raised his hands. "Take whatever you need. I'm not getting in the middle of this." Quote, Sarah gathered flour, coffee, salt, blankets, and ammunition. She worked with purpose. When she returned, the man forced Jeb and Cole outside. "You'll leave with what you came with," he said, "nothing more." "You're killing us," Jeb shouted. The man looked at Sarah, then back at them. "I'm giving you the same chance you gave her." Jeb flinched. He knew exactly what those words meant. Sarah looked at them one last time. She expected to feel revenge or satisfaction. Instead, she felt peace, a quiet closing of the past. They watched the two men limp into the trees until they were gone. Inside, the man sank into a chair. Sarah noticed he was hurt again. The wound from before had opened. She cleaned, stitched, and bandaged it with gentle hands. This time he did not look away. He watched her with something new in his eyes, something warm. When she finished, he spoke softly. "You're strong," he said. "Most would not have survived what you did." "You taught me how," she replied. He shook his head. "It was always inside you. You just needed to see it." Quote, they stayed the night in the trading post. In the morning, they packed the recovered horses and supplies. The bartender gave Sarah a loaf of bread and wished her well. When they left Whisper Creek behind, she felt lighter, as if a heavy shadow had lifted. As they rode, the mountains opened before them like a new world. Snow covered the peaks. Pines grew thick and tall. The wind was colder, but it no longer felt cruel. It felt fresh, like a beginning. She rode beside the man, not behind him. Their horses moved in sync. No words were spoken for a long time. None were needed. After a while, she looked at him. "I never asked your name." He glanced at her, then forward again. "Silas," he said. "Silas." The name fit him. Strong, steady, shaped by the wilderness. "I'm Sarah," she said quietly. He nodded once, the corner of his lips lifting just slightly. "I know." The silence returned, but it was a warm silence, a shared one, the kind that comes when two souls understand each other. Ahead, the land stretched wide and wild, waiting for them. Life had taken everything from Sarah, but had given her something unexpected in return. A chance at a new beginning, not with fear, but with strength and hope. As they rode deeper into the mountains, she knew one thing for certain. Her life would never be the same again.